NFL Week 8 is here. The season's flying by. We're almost at the halfway point, and we have 6 teams on bye this week. So I know you have guys in your lineup that you've been starting, whether it's JSN or Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like that. They're all out this week, so we don't have to worry about them. But we're going to be showing you the guys that you should be using to replace them in what should be a fun week of matchups.
Let's get it.
Starting off with the Atlanta Falcons, played a pretty gross game against the 49ers last week on Sunday Night Football. Game flew by. I think it was only like a sub 3-hour game. McCaffrey obviously dominated this Falcons defense, but in terms of their players, nobody really popped off. Darnell Mooney was a little bit more involved than he has been in past weeks, which was nice to see if you picked him up on waivers after some people gave up on him. Kyle Pitts was pretty involved. Drake London had a decent game. His floor is always going to be pretty high. He's just that type of player where he's going to be Michael Penix's lead target in those situations. And then Bijan is obviously as a lead of a starter as you're going to find. You're throwing him in every week.
Yeah, totally. I would just second what you had with this team. You're pretty much looking for Drake London as a consistent starter, and then that's that.
How are the Ravens looking? How's the vibes in Baltimore about this team right now?
Vibes are low. Did you see that they took out like all the fun shit in the Ravens locker room?
Yeah. No ping pong table, no video games.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously vibes are not firing, but I do think it should be somewhat decent week for Zay Flowers, and I think Derrick Henry might be a little bit undervalued too this week, especially from a daily fantasy sports perspective. Like once Lamar re-enters that offense, like it completely changes the dynamic of their run game. I think we should see, like a vintage DH, as in or beginning of the season Derrick Henry, last season Derrick Henry returned this game, so that's good. Not really too enthusiastic about the passing attack from the Ravens outside of Zay Flowers with Lamar's first game back. I just don't think you can really rely on any of these guys for any sort of, if we're talking fantasy starter production, or just any sort of consistency. The Ravens really need to bounce back. It's going to be tense. So I think Zay is going to be leaned on very heavily. Other than that, you're good to start Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I completely agree. Lamar practiced today. I think we just got the report like an hour ago, so that's nice to see. Did not practice yesterday, so logged one and hopefully is progressing well enough to play on Sunday. The Bears secondary has been decent despite the injuries. Their run defense has really gotten gashed as of late. Going into the bye, Genty had like 170 rush yards. It was his only game anywhere near that all season with that O-line. And so I think that's probably where they're most vulnerable. And so you're looking at Derrick Henry and possibly Lamar to get going with his legs, depending on how he's feeling after the injury. But yeah, I agree with you on the pass catchers here. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills coming out of the bye. Clearly some things need to be adjusted. They looked pretty poor in their last 2 weeks, dropping games to the Patriots and the Falcons. Offense just didn't look as elite as it had early on in this season. I think Josh Allen's going to make a lot of adjustments, and they'll probably find ways to consolidate targets to Khalil Shakir and guys he feels more confident in. Kincaid's become a reliable starter. You can throw him into your lineup this week, especially with some of the better tight ends on bye. Keon Coleman's a guy that is pretty close to droppable. Maybe you'll see out of the bye, he'll get some more scheme targets and stuff, but he's always just going to be more of that big play threat, jump balls down the sideline and things like that. I expect Josh to have a much bigger week. I think he'll be way better. And Shakir's obviously just Mr. Reliable. He's a fine flex option for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a fun week to, I feel like there's a lot of teams that have sort of just been keeping Khalil on the bench or at the top of the bench waiting for that right moment to start. I think this Panthers matchup is a perfectly fine time to throw him in there. Same with what Grant said, like Kincaid, you love to see already, despite, a couple low target games, like more consistency than we saw a lot of last season. That was disappointing. So, Kincaid outlook there is looking up. Love to see the consistency out of Shakir. And I would definitely agree with Grant that Keon Coleman, despite like what is obviously a pretty hefty share of the first reads, just does not see the consistent volume that you need to put him in your lineup each week. So
yeah,
yeah,
it's not the greatest matchup in the world for pass catchers as well. The Panthers defense in general has been a pretty good unit, and JC Horn is about as elite as you can get at the cornerback position. So it's not like the most exploitable matchup in the world, although it still would feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Moving right on to the Panthers, the Bills secondary has been getting gashed all year. We saw what Drake London was able to do against that secondary. He had a massive game, and Tet is a guy that I'm absolutely starting this week. I feel great about. No other pass catchers really of any fantasy relevance for me. It'll be interesting to see how Jalen Coker continuously gets more and more involved in this offense. But for now, he's more of a stash guy, and Tet is absolutely going to my lineup. I think it's a great matchup for him. Especially even, I think with Andy Dalton playing, it's probably even a better matchup than it would have been with Bryce. I think there's just a level of consistency and gunslinger type attitude that you can rely on him targeting Tet a ton.
Yeah, I totally agree. Tet is a smash play this week. Other than that, not touching any of these Panthers pass catchers, despite that giant first read share from Xavier Legette in the last game. That's not going to be consistent.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Moving on to the Bears, who play the Ravens, like we talked about. The Ravens defense has been an absolute mess. Hopefully they can get some guys to return. But if they don't, the secondary has been pretty abysmal, and Rome should get right up to that target share that he's had in the past. Last 2 weeks were pretty disappointing from him. Not the kind of production you're expecting after such a hot start, but I think this should be a great get-right spot for him. The only other lean I'd have, I mean, DJ Moore, if you have him, he's probably going into the flex. Luther Burden's a nice stash, but Colson Loveland's a guy I'm looking at a lot. Cole Kmet likely out of this one, and it seemed like after the bye, the Bears have made a decent effort to get some of the rookies more involved. And Colson Loveland, they used a top 12 pick on the guy. He's a guy they feel really good about, and a guy they should be confident in getting the ball to more. And he feels like the biggest kind of like buy low candidate rookie bounce off the bye that could potentially have some real value in fantasy as the season goes on. But I don't know that you're feeling good enough to start him this week. It depends what your tight end situation is looking like, but definitely keep an eye on the guy.
Yeah, it's super encouraging to see that that usage for Colston Loveland go up. But personally, like this Chicago Bears team, I think they have potentially the best like passing matchup on the entire slate this week. So I'm targeting pretty much all of these Chicago pass catchers. Rome, DJ, definitely going in the starting lineup. Olamide, who knows, he sneaks into the end zone. And yeah, just echo what Grant said on Loveland.
Sweet. Yeah, I totally agree. Bengals, love what you saw from Joe Flacco. I think he was a great person to come in and kind of raise the level up. He's as consistent as you can get at this age. He's just going to drop back and sling the rock as much as he can. Jamar Chase is obviously going into every lineup you have. He looked fantastic in the first game between these two.
No Sauce
I guess it
Gardner.
was the second game they played together. Yeah, no Sauce Gardner, which is even better for this matchup. And I still feel good about T. Higgins as well. He had a productive day with Joe Flacco as well. So both these guys, you might have not felt as good about them in weeks 3 through 5, but I think they're back to fantasy relevance, and you can fully trust both these guys to be back in your lineup. T. Higgins is a flex. Jamar Chase is a elite wide receiver 1. Get them both in.
Yep, totally agree. I mean, I think this is a great spot for Flacco. Like, despite Sauce Gardner obviously being a presence, he's not going to be there. The Jets allow pretty much the most dropbacks to any quarterbacks in the entire league. That's all Joe Flacco. He's going to be absolutely feasting this game, and his receivers likewise.
Yep. Cleveland, their offense obviously looked really good against your boys over last weekend. But I think that more is a Dolphins stat than it is a Brown stat. The ground game is elite. They didn't have to throw the ball at all. I think this might be a situation where you got to throw the ball a tad more, just based on the game script against the Patriots. The Patriots offense has been scoring a ton. So in order to keep up, you're going to have to throw the ball a touch more. And Harold Fannin feels like the reliable target, especially as a tight end option. I like his matchup this week. Jerry Jeudy, you just feel kind of gross about it. I think he has around like an 8 projection and half point. I'm probably passing on him, but still keep an eye on the guy. And everyone else I'm fine passing on. Just love the ground attack that they've been working with recently.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Harold Fannin is in sort of a smash spot here. The Patriots have allowed a lot of fantasy points and scoring to the tight end position this season. So, I mean, with that in the game script, this should just be an absolute smash spot for Fannin.
With you. Cowboys, about as fun of an offense as you can find in the NFL right now. And as you can see from this target share, it is pretty much 100% split up between 3 guys and somewhat evenly at that. CD's obviously going to get a lot of those short intermediate targets whenever they need 11 yards. He's going to get the ball, but Jake Ferguson clearly has a nice relationship with Dak, and he's getting the ball in the red zone. They're scheming him open a ton. There was a play last week. They ran a little rollout with him, blocking for a sec and then breaking through and running a little burst route into the end zone. And it's nice to see those targets be schemed. Pickens is still going to get a lot of deep play action. I think he's still super live to score touchdowns. And based on the production he's giving you this year, his ceiling is super high. So you still got to throw him into your lineup, even with CD back. And it was really nice to see CD return to the guy he was in week 1. And I feel great about throwing in my lineup as a wide receiver 1 with no hesitation going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the most beautiful first read percentage chart in the entire league. Like, you'd love to see that as an owner of CD, as an owner of Pickens, as an owner of Ferg. Like, and I think there's going to be some level of consistency to that too, based on just it being Dak, the comfortability with his 2 guys, and him building a repertoire with George Pickens in that short stint while CD was away. Like, this passing attack is going to be on fire the whole season as long as they stay healthy. I don't think it's going to look any different against the Broncos. I mean, maybe you see a little bit more work from Pickens and from Ferg than from CD this game, just with PS2 in action. But otherwise, I think you're good to go on all these guys.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I also think that that defense has just been a tad overrated.
Yeah.
They've been great in pass rush, which will obviously take Dak out of his game a touch. But the Cowboys O-line is capable of hanging in there, and people have been able to move the ball against the Broncos. You saw the Giants were able to put up 30 points, and it's definitely a good defense. And I think as the season goes on, it might become an elite defense. But for now, I'm not starting guys just because they're playing Denver, which I think a lot of people thought was going to be the case coming into the year.
Yeah.
All right, we got the Broncos. Same game. Cowboys defense has not been good. The secondary gives up a ton of points. I feel fantastic about Cortland Sutton. Everybody else, if you have a bunch of guys on bye, I think Troy Franklin is a fun candidate to throw into your lineup. They've been scheming him looks open on some of those short routes and also a deep play threat. He has enough bursts where he can kind of break through the secondary, but Marvin Mims is more going to be your guy for there. I feel decent about both of these guys if you're in deep leagues and you have a ton of guys on bye. Both these guys, if they're on waivers or on your bench, feel like solid plays for the week.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is a smash start this week against this
100%.
Cowboys team. It's a great matchup.
38 points last week or something like that.
Yeah, just an unbelievable
You feel
amount
really
of,
good.
Yeah, like that huge comeback win over the Giants last week. Nix, obviously coming off that, he's expected on pretty much all accounts to go hard this week. Like, the pass catchers should be there. Cortland Sutton somehow didn't get into the end zone last game, but I really wouldn't let that dissuade you from him, despite not making it in like a huge scoring game. I think he should probably find his way into the end zone this game.
Completely agree. The Packers. Be interesting to see kind of some practice reports here. I think you might get Dontavion Wicks back. Everybody else still kind of working their way back from injury, but I feel good about it about being a Matthew Golden owner. He's definitely gotten a slow uptick. The first read percentage is kind of gross on this whole chart. It's hard to figure it out, but if his first read on those 20% of plays are 50-yard targets, like, that's significant and still worth throwing into your lineup. He's going to have a high ceiling. I think he's due for a touchdown on one of these big plays. He's going to break through a secondary at some point. And the Steelers' defense has just been not good all year. A fun Sunday night matchup. I think there should be some points in this one. And The Steelers have given up a ton of big plays. We saw with the Bengals on that Thursday night game, and I think Matthew Golden is the most likely target to do so. In a high-scoring game, I still like Romeo Doubs as well. He's like their number one red zone target, and Tucker Kraft is also going to the lineup. So if it's just those three guys in the offense, I'm starting all three, or I feel pretty good about at least flexing them.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you here in this matchup against the Steelers. Prime time too. I think they're going to lean on Josh Jacobs a lot in this game against the Steelers. Like, I don't know if it's going to be the most high scoring affair, but you still do, just based on like the target share they're getting, feel really confident. Romeo Doubs, feel confident in Kraft. So, and yeah, like, I mean, pretty much just agree with what Grant said. Like, Golden is getting to the point now where you feel okay throwing him in at the flex. So go for it.
The Colts, what a fun offense this has become. Tyler Warren is as close to a tight end one as you can find. He's going into your lineup every week. He has a chance to be the overall tight end one at this rate. And Pittman's just going to be a pretty high floor guy. I feel good about throwing him into my lineup pretty much every week. They play the Titans, so you might be in a situation where this is a blowout and you just need to cash in on some of those points early, but I still feel pretty good about starting these guys. I wouldn't go deeper into the bag with these pass catchers just based on the game script. I think it's going to be a ton of ground game, but I like Pittman and Warren to put both of them in my lineup 100%.
Yeah, I also think DJ is probably a good start with this one, in this one, just with the potential rushing upside there
For
too.
sure. I think he could stack up points pretty early on and be at like 22 points in the third quarter, and then they bench him for the remainder, but he's still at a high enough floor that you're glad you started him in the game. So I feel good about that one as well. I like it. Moving on here into the Houston Texans. Nico Collins gonna miss this one. Bad head injury. I guess he could still return to practice if he clears concussion protocol, but I'm expecting him to be out. And in that situation, I'm throwing Dalton Schultz into my lineup 100%. He was like the main target down the field on those last couple drives with Nico out in that gross game we saw late on Monday night. I guess a lot of you probably didn't see it because it started at 10 p.m. But I feel good about throwing Dalton Schultz into my lineup. He was kind of Mr. Reliable at those times. Jaden Higgins, rookie, should get a little bit of scheme targets for him. I hope that they have figured that out a bit, and someone's going to have to step up in Nico Collins' absence, and he seems like the most likely candidate for it. I think if you have a bunch of guys on bye, kind of like what we talked about with Troy Franklin, Jaden Higgins is a guy you can slot into one of those flex positions and feel pretty good about, or you can even take him in a prediction strike, pick him slip at his receiving yards total. I don't expect it to be anything too crazy. Could be getting ahead of the market just a touch there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Pretty much the only shout I was going to make on this team was Jaden Higgins, who should see a larger than his typical ancillary role with this one. In this one, with Nico being out, I think he should probably assume most of that role for one game here. So excited to see that. Who knows? Might wager on him a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. The Chiefs here, I mean, Rashee Rice, just what a return that was. If you were someone that stashed him and managed to stay afloat, you feel fantastic about your team. They're playing the Commanders on Monday night this week. Depending on if Jaden plays, I think this one could easily be very gross. And I'm throwing Rashee into my lineup all day, every day. And I think Travis Kelce, like if you drafted him, unless you have like a Mason Taylor or kind of a fun option, and we'll talk about in a sec, I think you could throw a guy like that in there over Travis Kelce. But as far as these other pass catchers, Worthy's still going to have the big play ability, get some downfield targets and some scheme to kind of gadget plays and things like that. So he can be a flex, but everyone else I'm avoiding. I think they got lucky and found their way to the end zone. Marquise Brown didn't play well. He just had one catch and scored a touchdown. So I'm fading the rest of them, but Rashee looks fantastic. I'm glad he's back.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Mahomes equally, like with Rashee in the lineup, looks like he kind of has his spark back. But kind of like you said, the Chiefs are super intentional about mixing up their looks. Like they've kept the first read percentage spread out the entire season, like a super consistent mix, or consistently mixing up the target. So it's like I mean, all of these guys are super live for when one of the other receivers gets injured. I think Rasheed is the only consistent start out of these guys anymore now that he's back. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chargers, Aronde Gadsden is really the main guy to talk about. We obviously know what the receiver room looks like. It's pretty split. QJ had the lowest target share, first read percentage last week, but he did find his way in the end zone to keep some relevance. Keenan Allen had a massive week, and Ladd had a pretty good week in full point PPR as well. I think he had 9 catches for 65 yards, something like that. Obviously, they were in a crazy passing game script. Something like that you're not going to see a lot, especially against the Minnesota Vikings, who do a good job of mixing up looks, should keep Justin Herbert off balance. And with this O-line, I fear for Justin Herbert's life tomorrow night. I'm still starting Keenan and Ladd. I think if you have flex options, all these guys kind of fall into the flex category. If you need a flex, I think you could put all 3 of these guys in there. Aronde Gadsden, potential ceiling play. I mean, he had a gigantic week last week. I don't know how reliable that is or consistent it'll be, but you've seen the last 2 weeks, he's had a pretty good target share. One of those was without QJ. I think if you have guys on bye this week, it's worth a shout. I mean, I don't see a reason if you're looking for upside to start a guy like, I don't know, like a Chiga Okonkwo or a Juwan Johnson or someone like that. I think Aronde Gadsden's going to give you the higher ceiling there. If you want to take a shot and you need some upside, I think he's your guy.
Yeah, pretty much don't have anything to add to the squad aside from what you just said. Love it.
Your Dolphins, how we feeling? Can't be good.
Yeah, it's going to be another shit show this week. I mean, who knows? Darren Waller placed on the IR, the one glimmer of hope this lineup had, really. So who knows? I mean, maybe they're playing the Falcons, so I don't know. Maybe they have really good secondary, so you're not really taking much of a stab on any of these guys. I mean, Waddle, you're going to start if he's on your team. Other than that, stay away.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Waddle has played well enough to this point where he's a starter. Last week was bad, but that whole game is just gross. I think he's still going in your lineup every week when he can, but yeah, that's about it for me as well. If we take a look at the New England Patriots, their offense has been so great as of late. Kayshon Boutte has been a huge deep play threat for them. He's found his way open in the end zone on huge long balls, which is great. If you're a Kayshon Boutte owner, if you picked him up on waivers, I think with all the buys this week, he's a totally reliable flex candidate. Stephon Diggs seems to be the guy they're going to on those yardages where they just need to pick up yards on a play, and Stephon Diggs has been that guy for them. A lot of slant routes, a lot of like nice corner routes, showing off that route running ability that made him successful in his youth. Hunter Henry, just don't really love. I mean, he's been fine. I think his peak was in week 3. He's kind of slowly deteriorated from there, I think, with all the buys. Still a guy worth a look, but I like Boutte in the flex and Stephon Diggs for sure in that flex spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you totally on Boutte and Stephon, but I do think Hunter's a decent play this week. Like, the Browns are kind of susceptible to the in-the-middle passing game. It should be a heavy passing script game just with the Browns' rush defense and like the not amazing Patriots rushing attack. So I think Hunter Henry's in a pretty good spot to at least get like above average targets. Who knows what he does with those? But yeah, I think he's a fine start.
Agreed. The Browns defense is very good too. I expect them to bottle up the runs. Maybe that's where you look in this one.
Yeah.
The Bucks, kind of an interesting one. Mike Evans likely out for the season, or at least the most of it. Chris Godwin's going to be out. You're looking at Emeka. I don't know how he even returned from that injury that quickly. It was a crazy feat of athleticism for him to get back out there on the field. Cade Otton, feel decent about. I mean, he got some targets. It was kind of just a gross game. The defense from Detroit was flying around. Tez Johnson, get him in your lineup, or at least get him on your bench. He's worth a look going forward for sure. Do you have any insight on some of these secondary targets?
No, I was going to shout out Tez Johnson too, who just had 4 catches. Godwin's Evans going to be shelved for a minute here. So, like Emeka is still going to be the primary pass catcher, but I think Tez Johnson should see a lot more volume. The Saints is allowing a ton of fantasy points per target to wide receivers this season. Tons of yards given up already on the season to wide receivers in terms of yards per route run. So I think it's a feast week for Tez Johnson and likely for Emeka Egbuka as well. And Kate Otten, too, honestly. I think Kate Otten's a good option. Whenever the Buccaneers are shorthanded, they always lean on Kate Otten. Week 7, he caught 7 of his 9 targets. So I think we'll see more of the same here against this Saints defense.
Agreed. Let's move swiftly onward to the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chargers. Their Chargers defense has been pretty porous as of late. They gave up a ton of points, mostly through the ground, I guess, to the Colts. But I still think Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are great starts this week. Don't really love TJ Hawkinson, but Jordan Addison has played great since returning from that suspension. Another huge week in week 7 was their leading yards getter for receivers. Justin Jefferson, obviously super reliable. You're throwing him into your lineup every week, but I honestly think this is a pretty good matchup. I like both those guys being in your lineup.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. The Chargers secondary can get eaten up, so Justin Jefferson is a must start. Jordan Addison, a huge first read percentage last week. I think we see not to that extent, but that should become normal. You're going to see a lot of blue and green in these first read percent charts going forward.
100%.
Hawk shell himself. Been saying it all season. I mean, it just sucks, but it's true. He isn't getting the looks. I don't think he's getting there to get the looks. So
yeah, he's one of the more disappointing fantasy picks, I think, for most people.
Totally.
On to the Saints. I think this matchup is actually pretty decent for Rashid Shaheed here. Could be some big playability against the Buccaneers. Buccaneers secondary has still been decently banged up, but I think he's a decent play in the flex in a week with so many guys out. Don't love Juwan Johnson. I mean, he's solid. He put up a ton of points in garbage time last week, which is kind of why you see that uptick from week 5 and 6, but not a guy you feel like lovely about having in your lineup. And Chris Olave, get him in your lineup. Wide receiver 2 status, even for me. I think this is a pretty good matchup, and his target share is just so outrageous that he's going to have to go in your lineup any week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm starting Chris every single week. This matchup is no different against a Buccaneers team that's been getting passed on. And yeah, Juwan is just mids. Like it's promising for people who still have him rostered to like see a higher target share percentage. But I just think we see more of the same. Taysom Hill's around, very skilled. He's going to be a factor for Juwan owners all season. Rashid, I love that call. It seems like just sort of out of nowhere, he's getting a lot more targets intentionally too, it seems, from Rattler. So maybe more of the same this week in a positive game script for the passing attack.
Yeah. I think that plays 100%. The Giants, I mean, Theo Johnson has kind of worked his way into a role that's hard to deny. I'm totally starting Wan'Dale Robinson in all formats. He's tough to keep out of your lineup at this point. He's been great. Him and Jackson Dart seem to have a nice little connection, and on those short routes and kind of tunnel screens and things like that, Wan'Dale's the guy that's getting the ball more often than not. Theo Johnson, I think you feel pretty good about. There's definitely a whole tier of tight ends above him, but you could do worse at the position for sure. I don't think it's the worst matchup in the world. I like Wan'Dale Robinson, though, against the Eagles. Had some success there just a couple weeks ago, and I think in kind of a revenge type situation, I think the Eagles could step on the gas here and take a pretty decent lead, and so that's kind of what you want if you have one of these pass catchers. You're going to be playing from behind.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the Eagles are more than likely going to develop somewhat of a lead early on. You know, make it forcing Dart to make those deep passes, just pass more in general. Theo should be a start this week. Wan'Dale Robinson should be a start this week. Good on everyone else. I mean, LaJordan Humphrey didn't see any of that target share last week, disappointingly. who knows? Maybe he comes back into the fold, but for now, I'm not touching him.
The Jets, just gross. I mean, literally just blow up the whole team at this point. Tyrod Taylor, I guess, like you feel better about his ability to throw the ball than you did with Justin Fields. And with how bad this Jets team is, they are probably going to be playing from behind in a lot of games, and definitely in this one. So I feel like you can do worse than starting Tyrod Taylor this week against the Bengals defense, which has not been great at all. Aaron Rodgers just threw for 4 touchdowns last week against them. And if Garrett's out, I think I'm totally starting Mason Taylor and feel good about that start. Other than that, I mean, like Arian Smith's kind of a fun play for a young player, but someone I'm not confident in getting into my lineup just yet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like Breece Hall is going to be the only smash on this team this week, and that's going to be that for me.
Pittsburgh, playing the Green Bay Packers, whose defense has been good, but definitely have been giving up some points to tight ends, which are kind of what Pittsburgh does best. You can't really throw one of those 3 tight ends into your lineup, really, just because they all kind of do work. I think they all scored a touchdown last week. DK, poor week, but you're still putting him in your lineup. I feel good about this matchup and what should be a pretty high-scoring affair. And then maybe you get involved with some pickup slips on one of these guys to score a touchdown on PS or some receiving yards, but it's hard to trust any one of these tight ends to do well. I just think the 3-headed monster of them all will like have a good game overall.
Yeah, it's like I feel like you're pretty much shooting for like touchdown spots with these guys just because they have 3 guys. All 3 of them got into the end zone last week, but I do think that's going to aggregate out a little bit to the wide receivers. We might see more looks DK, CA3. DK likely a fun start this week.
Agreed. I think it's a fun matchup on Sunday night as well. You could get some bump plays from there. The Eagles, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are both going to your lineup. They had huge weeks. Going against the Giants, secondary is not anything to be like super crazy afraid of. Dallas Goedert had a gigantic week against them just a couple weeks ago when they played, but I'm fine staying off of that stock for now. And you're chucking AJ Brown and Devontae Smith into wide receiver 2 type conversations for sure. I think they've earned that after the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're starting Devontae, you're starting AJ, Goddard. I mean, he's looked amazing when he's played, so that's pretty much all I'd say. They're in a positive matchup this week too, against the freaking, who are they playing this week again? The Giants, yeah.
Yeah. Niners. I mean, like basically whoever plays on the field has some success for them. Jawan played decently well. The passing game was bad this week. I mean, it was all CMC on the ground and in the air. Keep an eye on Ricky's practice reports. If he's playing, you're getting him into your lineup against the Texans. Texans secondary is pretty good, but it's not impossible to score against. And hopefully you see a lot more from George Kittle. I know a lot of people felt good about that and started him, and that's just not the situation that you anticipated with him dropping a 0 spot. So hopefully he can pick it up quickly.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kittle needs to see more of that first read percentage to be effective, but that should change as games go on.
It's got to change. The Titans, I mean, it's also just kind of a dumpster fire over there. They play the Colts, should be trailing in that one again. Calvin Ridley's back. I guess you could throw him in, but I personally, I'm just avoiding this entire offense. I don't feel good about starting any of these guys. Is there any bright spot that you can find, or are you with me?
No, I'm with you. Bench him.
See ya. Commanders will be an interesting one. If Jaden doesn't play, you obviously see how this target share has changed in the past. You can see that in week 5 and 6, in some of those games where he hasn't played, it's been a lot of Debo. And I think that could be the situation again with a lot of those gadget routes, short screens, and things like that, just to get Marcus Mariota comfortable. Terry McLaurin's injury is just bizarre at this point. I would have thought he definitely would have been back by now. But keep an eye on those practice reports. I don't feel great about starting him first week back with Mariota at quarterback anyway. But in the game they're probably trailing, you can get some late points or something like that. But Zach Ertz is going into your lineup for sure. Without both these receivers, which seems like that could be the case on this Monday night, I think you feel good about Zach Ertz. Someone's going to have to get the ball, and like Chris Moore's just not a reliable enough target that you're fearing that. So give me Zach Ertz in my lineup 100%. I think he could easily be in my top 7 to 5 tight ends this week. I think the matchup's pretty good.
I like that call. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about Zach Ertz at all for this game, but he could be a ton of fun. Debo is obviously a home run this week. I think besides those two, I'm not really touching anyone on this passing attack, but it should be a fun game. And I think the Chiefs will probably win.
Yeah, agreed. We just did the Titans. That's all we got. But that was our best effort at tiering and talking about some receivers in a crowded week of buys. You're going to need some newcomers to come in and switch things up. But if you made it to this point, you're going to enjoy this running back segment. So we'll catch you in that.
Catch you guys. Thank you for watching. As always, download the PredictionStrike app. Play some Pick'em, play some Sparks. We got all the sports you could ever want. So, come hang with the real money makers.
Peace out, y'all.
Peace.